Thank you, Scott. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the past few weeks, months probably, have been really, really tough. We know winter was coming, and we've planned for it, we've prepared for it, but it still hit us really, really hard. And there have been some highs, there have been some lows, some of our predictions have come true, and there have been a lot of surprises. And now it's over, we've been left battle-weary and confused, with probably as many questions as answers. And so when Scott got in touch to ask me to do this talk, it was a really welcome distraction. And I was really thrilled. It's nice to get some recognition, isn't it? And I was really thrilled, and I thought, at last, I, Liz at the House Herrieven, consultant of emergency medicine, first of my name and mother of dragons, is finally going to be recognised as the Queen of Teaching in Emergency Medicine. However, that feeling did not last long, because I made the mistake of asking Scott, why me? What's so great about how I teach in the emergency department? And he replied, perhaps a little too quickly, well, if you can do it, Liz, anyone can. Thanks, Scott. So I started to worry. I know nothing. I have no formal educational qualifications beyond my generic instructor course. I know very little about educational theory, although I'm learning all today, thank you to Nikki. And actually, I get really nervous about teaching. I worry that I don't know enough to be able to explain that to other people. I worry about how I'm going to come across and whether or not I'm going to make myself clear. And I have a massive imposter syndrome standing here today. And the big thing I'm worried about is whether or not you're all going to lynch Scott later on to ask for your money back. So, I'm not a natural teacher, and I have very, very little patience. And despite being a woman, I find it really difficult to multitask. So on the shop floor, I want to concentrate on my patients and coordinating the department. And teaching kind of gets in the way of that, doesn't it? When you're a senior on the emergency department, everybody is coming at you and everybody wants a piece of you. And that is patients, relatives, nursing staff, trainees, other specialties, managers. And how on earth do we fit in the time and the energy to think about training amongst all of that? The emergency department often feels very loosely organised chaos. And it's busy, it's unpredictable, there are a lot of demands on us. And how on earth do we manage to fit in teaching when we are busy firefighting most of the time? Trying to protect time for teaching can feel like a really hopeless and thankless and impossible task. We are often faced with targets that we need to meet, with performance indicators, with safety issues, and with lots and lots of management on our backs. Trying to get that balance between service provision and training is really, really difficult. But actually, teaching is absolutely essential in what we do. How otherwise are we going to be able to produce a safe, sustainable workforce for the future? And also, looking more short-term as well, I know that I can concentrate far better on my patients if I know that the team that I'm working with has been properly trained to look after their patients. Teaching also gives us lots of job satisfaction, so not just for the trainees, but all of us here today are interested in teaching and I hope enjoy teaching, and it's good to do a little bit of what you enjoy. And I find that actually teaching is probably the best way for me to learn. To be able to explain something to somebody else, you need to be able to know it backwards and forwards and inside out. And that involves also being able to have those final discussions with people that have done extra reading on the subject. So teaching helps me to keep up to date and to read areas that I wouldn't normally go out of my way to do. So I realised actually, Scott's right. If I can teach in emergency medicine, then anybody can. So then I started to think about what we do in Hull and why it works. And I realised that we need to think about things a little differently. So we need to be flexible. I think the days of taking trainees away from the shop floor for great swathes of time and sitting them in the seminar room is gone. We need to be able to fit our teaching around our patients rather than squeeze our patients around our teaching. We need to be opportunistic. So we need to be keeping our eyes and ears open for cases that we can teach on. So on a handover or a board round, I'll often pick out one case just for a few minutes of mini teaching. It doesn't have to be anything weird or wonderful, and actually it's better if it isn't. So a community acquired pneumonia developing to talk about scoring systems, x-rays, antibiotics, for example. The other thing we need to do is get buy-in from the whole department. And that's not just healthcare professionals, but also management. And I have invited managers along to some of our teaching sessions before now, so they can see what we're doing and why we're doing it and why it's so important, and that's worked really well. I think teaching works best in the emergency department when it is targeted and focused on a particular area. So a short, small piece of information is far more likely to be digested and retained by our trainees who are massively cognitively overloaded and physically tired on their shift than a large piece of information. And that might be that we end up looking at a small area of the RPM curriculum. It might be that it's an interesting case that we've had or a significant event that we need to address. And the best things really do come in small packages. So not just content-wise, but also time-wise. So high frequency, low dose teaching, so you have lots and lots of small little episodes of teaching, tends to work better in our environment than big, long teaching sessions. I'm a massive fan of bite-sized teaching. So I have a whole raft of sessions pre-prepared and ready to go that I rotate through over the year. And most of them happen just after handover in the morning so that we can catch people at the end of the shift or the beginning of the shift. Most of them are advertised in advance so people know they're going to happen and know whereabouts to find us. But some happen kind of spur of the moment if we sense a bit of a lull in the craziness. And they last no more than 10 minutes. So a really short chunk of time on one small area of a bigger topic. And it might be that we're sat around with a couple of prompt cards to look at, or it might be that we have a couple of slides, or it might be that we have a diagram that we're focusing on. I go around beforehand and I let the charge nurse and the EPIC, if it's not me, know that it's going to happen. And I tell them where we're going to be. It's usually on the shop floor, in an area where it's likely to get interrupted. So that they know they can get us if there's an emergency, but actually, we're only going to be 10 minutes. And that's all, and then you can have your stuff back. Now, attendance at these sessions is really variable. So sometimes it's standing room only. Sometimes we get 1 or 2 people. And so I've had to kind of recalibrate how I think about that. Instead of being really fed up and thinking, we've only had 2 people turn up to teaching today, I've managed to turn it around, so now I'm thinking, well, do you know what? It was a really crazy day today, but 2 people came along and they learned something new, and that's fabulous. I do repeat the same session several times over the period of a couple of weeks to try and catch people on different shifts at different times, and that's had some really good feedback. The other thing that I think works really well is a portable educational toolkit. So this is literally a box that I can drag out of a cupboard that has a whole load of stuff in it that's ready to go without any preparation needed if we have time to do some teaching. So in that box I have some prompt cards, and I really like the cement cards from EM3. Some games, and again the EM3 stuff's really good. Some quizzes, some mini scavenger hunts around the departments, and some mini simulation scenarios as well. And we have a couple of mannequins that we keep on the shop floor that we can whip out if we want to do some low fidelity in situ simulation stuff. The great thing about this box is it's not my box, it's the department's box. So anybody can pull that box out 24/7 if they feel that they've got some time to do some teaching. The whole department is welcome to our teaching sessions. And that can create some challenges if we end up with an HCA and an ST6 in the same teaching group. But I find that working on a really basic, simple level, keeping things nice and simple, but adding in a couple of areas that we can have a deeper conversation about, depending on people's seniority, works really well. And then we adjust our focus of that session depending on who turns up. For practical training, procedural training that takes a little bit more preparation, I find drop-in sessions work really well. So, for example, I might get some kit out for an hour or so and see groups of people every 10 minutes or so. And it might be there's only 2 or 3 people in each of those groups, but we get through an awful lot of people through the course of the morning. For example, I might get out a baby mannequin and some kit and If it's HCAs and porters that turn up, then we'll do a bit of infant BLS practice. If it's an emergency medicine ST6, then we might pick out all the APLS algorithms and go through some finer points of that. There's nowhere else in the hospital that works as well as a team as we do in the emergency department. We work as a team, we look after patients as a team, and so we need to train as a team as well, and that's why we invite everybody to our teaching sessions. It's not just good for shared learning, but also really useful for getting to know each other, and then when you know each other better, you can work together better as well. Debrief can be a really, really useful educational tool, and I'm not going to harp on about it because there's a workshop coming up on later, but I would say just take care of your team. Emotions can be really raw, particularly if things haven't quite gone to plan. And if debrief is handled badly, then for somebody who's perhaps perceived to have made a mistake, or perhaps could have done something better, that's going to impact them for the rest of their career. Debrief done well can be really, really good. So especially if you're focusing on reinforcing the good practice that's gone on and looking at areas that the whole department can look at to improve. Keeping it department-based rather than individual-based. I'm a massive fan of phone, and not just for its content, but also for the critical thinking and ethical discussion that it stimulates as well. And that discussion might be between real people, or it might be online, and that works just as well. I often use it for educational descriptions, so after a teaching session, I'll email people that have attended with some extra things that they can look at. Except not my phone, is it good? And the other thing is actually work-based assessments as well. I'll often, if there's bits that have come to light during those assessments, then I'll send out further reading or listening for people. I started off, when I got really excited about phone, I started off sending out things constantly to people in the departments. And you need to read this, this is amazing. But actually, people were getting a little bit inundated by my emails, and people were actually known to create their own Liz Herrieven folders. So I've slowed that down a little bit now. And now I send out phone bulletins to the department. So I collect things together and send things out to the entire department. So I try and keep a bit of variety in there, something for everybody. And there might be some recently published stuff, might be a mix of articles, of blogs, of podcasts, and might be clinical, non-clinical, educational, well-being. I send those out sort of every week or so to absolutely everybody. And people use those in a different way. So some people obviously won't read any of it. Some people read absolutely everything and fire out lots of questions and stimulate lots of discussion, which is great. I think the majority of people read the bits that they're interested in, and again, that's okay. Obviously being Chem, I have my certain favourite sites, and the ones I like best, obviously Chem Learning, don't forget the bubbles. The 2 Peds in the podcast is brilliant. And I like GP Peds tips. Ignore the fact that it's got GP in the title, it's fab for emergency medicine as well. And the EM3 stuff and St Mungo's are all my favourites for sending out. And learning on the loop. I really like learning on the loop, and looking across Twitter, I think lots of other people do as well. And you might notice CPDYP or the Bug blog. I quite like the clinical updates. Now, in our department, I've kept it really simple again. So we have one toilet with one poster up at a time, and I change that every few days so as not to let people get bored. But I also don't want to get people overwhelmed as well. The first time I stuck a poster up in the toilet, one of the nurses said to me, "Oh, we can't even pee in peace now." But actually, since then, people have sought out my toilet preferentially over other toilets. So we even had paramedics dropping patients off and then seeking out our educational facilities afterwards. There's a lot of really good stuff out there that is perfect for putting in the toilet. And I would include in that the Pen Infographics website, Linda Dyke stuff, and the EM3 Lightning Learning as well. All of this stuff is completely stolen from elsewhere. None of it is new, none of it is rocket science. But it all relies on being flexible, being opportunistic, getting buy-in from the whole department, and trying to balance out service provision and patients. And training, trying to fit our teaching around our patients rather than fitting our patients around our teaching. With the right tools and the right attitudes, you can achieve great things, even teaching emergency medicine in the emergency department. I'm going to leave you with some very wise words from my favourite character. Thank you very much.